My name is Steve Grubbs. Welcome to this edition of VictoryXR's VR AR webinar about education in the United States and around the world. And we have really an amazing story today of all of the education stories we have been involved with in our 4 years of existence. This may well be our favorite. And a special thank you to one of our guests here today, Sallie Sanders, for making all of this happen. So we're lucky enough to work with Morehouse College. And Morehouse has an amazing program that I will not describe. I will let our guests describe. But let me introduce first Deshante Carmen. Now, Deshante has a really long title because apparently he's pretty important at Morehouse College, but I'm going to say it real quick. Assistant Director of Sponsored Academic Initiatives for the Provost Office of Morehouse College. See, I only get like 2 words in my title, so that's a big deal. So welcome, Deshante. Second is Sallie Sanders, and Sallie is the Program Manager for the TRiO program. And she works in 8 states, I think primarily in the southeast part of the United States. And of course, if you don't know, Morehouse College is in the southeast. And then finally, we have Julian Smith. And Julian is the instructor for field trips. And if you know anything about VictoryXR content, you know that we love our field trips. And we have field trips all over the world, including the Great Wall of China, Iceland, the redwood forest, and even a dairy farm in Iowa. So that was, to be able to take kids on field trips all around the world, that's pretty cool. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just get started and throw out the first question to Sallie. Sallie, would you talk to us? You first approached us, and you had an idea that you wanted to integrate really this advanced technology that only those really on the cutting edge were interested in. How did you become interested in this cutting edge technology and say, okay, I want to introduce this to the students in our program?
Well, I guess you have to understand Steve, right?
That's right.
You have to understand that I'm an educator first. I have been in education for a very long period of time. My area of concentration, of course, is the biological sciences, but I acted as chairperson for both the biological, physical sciences, and had a large number of very competent people who worked in my department for a very long time. This is on the high school level. I've also taught on college level and done research with the Department of Energy in the great state of Washington. So I know what I'm looking for. When you look for curriculum that meets the needs of students, you have to have an understanding, a basic understanding of the physical and the biological sciences if you're going to do justice to these students. That means give them information that is going to be fundamentally and basically knowledge-based so that they get their cutting edge education as far as the subject matter is concerned. But this summer, we had a different situation. We're having a different situation. That's because of the pandemic. And I knew that we would not have an opportunity to take our students on trips to very interesting places like NASA facilities, and both in Virginia, Chickasha, Virginia, and in Texas, where I have carried my students before. So I needed to have a program which would allow them to go on trips virtually and get similar experiences, and then let the subject matter instructors take that virtual trip and just do whatever they need with it. And the students would not be just sitting in the classroom or staring at a screen and doing nothing else. and I found your program. The unique thing about your program is that it allows not only the virtual reality, but it has a curriculum that is correlated with the expectations of high school students. And that's, I thought, was wonderful. That's how I ended up with VictoryXR.
Well, and kudos to our curriculum specialist, Renee Gadella, for the efforts that she made in seeing that everything was basically tied to the NGSS standards as far as our science curriculum. Deshante, you are, as far as I understand your role as with this program, you're in charge of making sure that that the right technologies and new learning instructions are integrated into the learning. Would that, A, is that how you would describe your role? And then B, what are your thoughts on why this program is necessary? Maybe you could even describe the program a little bit.
Okay. Yes, definitely. I'm one of those people at the college who's able to implement new strategies as far as education. And this is something that I'm really excited about before I met Miss Sanders, but she helped me implement it to a younger generation on top of the crowd that we were already trying to implement it with. So the story was, I was at a UNCF conference, and Ed Smith-Lewis introduced me to Labster, and I kind of got to know Labster, John Pallotta, and when we connected, the more I found out about it, the more I felt that it suited the life sciences. And, you know, I read that other universities were doing it. So I thought Morehouse should have a shot at trying to implement these virtual realities of life sciences inside the classroom setting. And lo and behold, because of COVID, it worked out. And I do think this is the wave of the future, because one of the great things about this is lab safety and introducing students to a different form of learning. And let's be honest, young kids like video game type stuff. And,
Yes.
and implementing those type of things and those type of systems into the educational field with that generation really will send learning to another level.
You know, one of our sayings around our company is when kids love to learn, they learn a lot. And,
I agree.
and that is really our mission, is to make learning so fun that they just absorb everything coming at them. Could you talk a little bit, Sallie, about who are these students in this program, and what's their age group, and how do you find these students across 8 states?
Well, I think we need to make clear that the TRiO, or Upward Bound program, is a program that has the honor of being associated with Morehouse College. And of course, we are on the Morehouse campus, and we represent Morehouse College. Mr. Carmen, on the other hand, is a part of the Morehouse, of the college itself. And because we are a TRiO program associated with Morehouse College, our program is determined by the Department of Education. We write grants. Our grant that represents the Southeastern Regional Program is written specifically for those students who live in the Southeastern region of the United States. So we cover the states of Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi. And we recruit these students, and they come to the Morehouse campus when possible. Of course, this summer that did not work, but your program made it possible for them to have the experiences that they normally get based on the grant that we wrote, and that of course was accepted. And that's how we end up with these students. So we have students in classes. We have 4 STEM classes: aviation, chemistry,
Wow.
biology, and physics. And these students are in all these 8 states. And with your program, we were able to bring them together by use of the virtual headsets. They all were provided with virtual headsets. And then the teacher of the program that we hired for the summer is Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith was able to have conversations with them and bring those conversations into the sciences, the science classes that they are involved in. And that's how we are stretched across the southeastern region of the United States.
So Julian, talk to us a little bit about that. I know that we shipped more than 100 headsets to students all over. And you had the confidence that these students were going to be able to receive this piece of technology that maybe they'd seen before, but my guess is many of them had really not interacted much with before, because most people I know haven't interacted much with VR headsets yet. And yet you made it work. Talk to me, before we talk about the field trips, which I really want to get into, but talk to me about just the experience of how you made that work with all these students, because there were so many of them.
Well, Mrs. Sanders has organized the program in such a way that I plugged myself in, where the students were divided in their classes, and each day I had a different set of students. So as the students received their headsets, we communicated through Google Meet.
Okay.
Through Google Meet, we communicated, and I was able to communicate the ideas, as well as to parallel what we were learning to STEM, and to highlight the information presented, as well as reinforcing STEM fields.
And what was the reaction of the students when they received these headsets and they're trying to figure it out? Can you describe some of your specific interactions with students and being able to travel different places?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you hear my question?
Yes.
Okay.
And they were excited because it's brand new. And I had the students to put their headsets in, or more so headphones rather, to plug it up, and they were very, very responsive. They were engaged where I may have stopped sometime to make sure that we are on the same point, and to get a response to them from them, about to ensure that we were on the same at the same point. And they enjoyed it. Specifically, they enjoyed the space travel. Was one module that stood out, just being able to see vividly and to feel. One student used the word immersed.
Yes.
It's one thing to read about a galaxy, and it's another to travel and be in the midst, immersed in space.
Yes.
So they were, and they did retain information very well.
What was the favorite field trip that students went on? If there was a favorite, or maybe one or two of the favorites, or I know that Adventures in Space is really cool, because who doesn't want to fly a Millennium Falcon into a black hole? So that's cool.
Sure.
But on those where they were here on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
what was their favorite? I know my favorite is still the Great Wall of China, but I'd be curious what this.
We also enjoyed the Tennessee Aquarium, the coral reef. So we had 4 weeks, and I had 45 minutes in a class. So we were able to do about one module. We did the urbanization, coral reefs, space travel, and there's another one.
So urbanization, I think that virtual field trip was to Hong Kong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was nice as well. As far as things that could help improve, I don't know technology, but if there is some type of way where the teacher could see what the student is looking at, that was a bottleneck in the process.
Well, Julian, it's funny you say that because Sallie is way ahead of us.
Okay.
Yes, Sallie has arranged. Can I tell this, Sallie?
Sure.
Okay. Sallie has arranged for the field trips to be all taken together, the teacher and the students
Wow.
all together next year in the same room.
Wow.
And so we rolled out our VictoryXR campus a little bit too late to use it in this summer's program. We rolled it out in mid-June. But next year, when you go on a field trip, the teacher and the students are all in the same room together and all experience the field trip at the same time. And,
Yes.
and in fact, teachers will be able to take a human heart and hand it out to the students, and then the students can expand that human heart so that it's 7 foot tall and step inside it, and so much more. So let's talk a little bit about the headset. So Sallie, originally when we were talking about the Oculus Go. It's a very affordable headset, but during the time that we were talking, Facebook announced no more Oculus Go. We're done with that headset. And so suddenly we had to pivot pretty quickly. And so we pivoted to the Pico G2. And talk to us a little bit about how that worked out for the program.
I think that it worked out very well, Stephen. I think the students were able to use the headset. They enjoyed the headset. It wasn't too heavy. It provided the degree of mobility that they needed as far as 360-degree view that they needed. And I'm not that familiar with the Oculus, but I am very pleased with the Pico G2 that we used.
Yeah, it actually was an upgraded headset, and so it turned out, I think, better for the students. And I'm also interested, at the end of the program, you had a little bit of a surprise for the students. Can you talk a little bit about that surprise?
Now, is this the host that we're talking, our honored guest that I told you about?
Well, no, but I'd be interested in that too. As I understand it, each of the students got a little gift at the end of the program.
Of course. Now I know what you're talking about. We allowed the students to keep the headsets. They were absolutely, what they didn't believe it. When I said to them at first, there's some things that you have to do. You got to keep your grades as best you can. You got to make sure that you're in classes every day when you're supposed to be there. If you can't be there, we have to know what the problem is. There were guidelines they had to follow. And I said to them, if you do all of these things, who knows? Maybe you'll get a chance to keep your headsets. Well, of course, we knew from the very beginning that we'd probably end up letting them keep them, but they loved the idea. Now, what they promised to do is to take these headsets back to their high schools, make sure that the principals and the counselors and their teachers have an opportunity to see the experiences that they had at Morehouse College doing their summer experience. They're thrilled.
Well, here's one of the parts of the story that I love the most, and you know, it's particularly relevant this summer. There's a lot of talk about equity in education. And what you have done for these 100+ students across the Southeast is you have given them not just a great summer education, but you have given them a leg up on all the other students moving forward if they continue to utilize this type of learning. And what a, you know, I don't want to use, I hate to use the term head start, but what a great advantage this is for these students. And I love that piece of it. You want to talk a little bit about equity in education and the goal of making sure these students are, you know, the best educated in their schools?
Well, you know, Steve, the one of the advantages of TRiO and upward bound programs is that we serve the low-income student. We serve those students who are on the socioeconomic level that creates a lot of issues for them educationally. And it pleases us in TRiO to be able to provide for them some of the things that we know that normally they would not be able to afford on their own. We provide experiences for them, trips for them this year with the headsets. And these are things that we take for granted, but these students are very appreciative. And let me tell you that they wrote essays, and Mr. Smith can tell you a little bit about the essays that they wrote expressing their appreciation and expressing the experiences that they had with the headsets. So I think the headsets become kind of an equalizer, if you will allow me to use that term, for the kind of students that we serve. Our students, there's no reason why they should not be able to have the same experiences that other students have. And this summer we provided it for them, and hopefully next summer they will have the same kind of experiences, but with some additions. Now let me explain to you the honored guests that our students had in their program. There is a director of the NASA program whose name is Vanessa Weish. Vanessa Weish was our guest, our honored guest this summer at Morehouse. And she provided a lot of incentives. She provided career options and invited the students to look at some of the programs that are provided by NASA. So that was the kind of surprise that I thought you were talking about it first.
Well, that's a pretty great surprise as well.
Oh yeah.
Talking about the advantage of technology, and frequently technology is one of those things that if you're more capable of affording it, then you gain the advantages. And so, you know, the fact that you focus on that, I think, is important. I know, and I hate to date myself, but you know, I worked at A&W as a stock boy. I saved my money, bought myself a Commodore 64, and I was the student on my dorm floor to have a computer. And I know what an advantage that gave me to be able to not use a typewriter, to use a computer. Oh my gosh. So maybe Sallie, you understand what I'm talking about. But so Deshante, talk a little bit about, you understand the impact of technology overall, and maybe the most relevant thing that I would love to get out there in this podcast right now is this fall is going to be very tricky for colleges, and everybody's looking at how to integrate technology to make education continue to work. what are you seeing at Morehouse College as far as going back to school this fall and how technology can impact that?
Well, technology has to have a big important role in how we move forward, even after the pandemic is over, because times are changing and the way people learn and engage is changing. But as far as going back in the fall, technology will be a huge piece in Morehouse College's role for the future, because what we're learning is through the Labster thing is the engagement of different ways to approach learning really impact the way students receive messages as far as instruction as students. And through the TRiO program, I'm pretty sure Ms. Sanders can agree with this, you know, having that type of technology helps students engage and further educate themselves in learning in a pretty neat way. And as far as engaging technology, again, in this fall, I think that, you know, how we deal with the students in the future will depend on how we deal with the pandemic, and as far as having programs and other technological outlets for students to use, because they're unable to have face-to-face settings.
Well, I will tell you this, what you do matters, because as I was telling various people in the tech world or tech community what we were doing with you, not a single one said, who's Morehouse College? Everybody knew, everybody knows who Morehouse College is, and the fact that you're leading, really leading in some of these areas, it matters, and it sets an example for others to follow. And so I'm glad that you're looking at how you can continue to be a leader in this space. I want to close out by giving each of you a chance to answer sort of a final, little bit open-ended question. But if you think about your best hope for learning over the next 5 years, and particularly how to make sure it's equitable and all of those students, whether they're in challenging situations or not, have access to the best education. What do you see? What's your optimistic view on how this will occur? And so why don't we start with Deshante and then go to Julian and finish out with our friend Sallie.
Well, the best way that education can further in general, as we mentioned, you know, throughout this talk, was technology. And for both sides to understand technology, as far as the teacher and the student, it will go a long ways in the way, because of the pandemic, let's be honest, online classes will be on the rise, because people will be so used to teaching online that, you know, it'll be more of a commodity. So schools that traditionally don't do that are now going to start doing it. But the great thing about this is the ability to have different ways of learning. And there's a lot of virtual reality stuff out there, a lot of games that can be implemented educationally in the classroom. I've talked to a couple different companies. I mean, it's really exciting to see what's going to happen educationally. And I think the students should be excited, because even when we go back, now they have a different platform. And I think faculty members should also be excited, because now they have a chance to implement their stuff and stuff students like. So I think a happy medium can occur.
That's great. Thank you. Julian, what's your best hope?
Well, I think that we are at a platform, a foundation that merges corporate America, providing resources to whether it be the public school system or, you know, collegiate institutions, to help equalize or provide equity in education. And as a classroom teacher, I like because of society's modernization with cell phone, which is a real issue in learning, is students have, through the virtual reality headset, this individualized personal experience, which cuts down some classroom interruption as a classroom teacher. And I think that my hope in particular, as I hosted the field trips, one of the most important responses that I saw from the students was now they could see why they are learning this information, as opposed to I'm just doing this for a grade. Now I see I can be a marine biologist. I can be, oh, this is why architecture. Oh, this is why I need to study biology so that I can help solve this situation. Oh, and it's more. It creates that it sparks the students learning in ways that traditional methods don't have.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's great. Sallie, why don't you wrap it up?
Well, I just see education changing as far as methodology is concerned. And change is difficult for a lot of people. Less difficult for students because they enjoy technology. For educators, we have other issues. So I see the future being wide open to students and to educators who are willing to make the necessary adjustment in how this information is delivered to the students. I do feel that from now on, even after we conquer this pandemic that we're in right now, that education will never go back to being what it used to be. It is necessary to be familiar with platforms that you can use to get information to the students. Morehouse College uses Blackboard. That's just wonderful. In our science classes, we're using well, I suppose I shouldn't use the name, but we don't use the large robots anymore. We can use the smaller robots like the Spiro boats, and these can become individually involved with the student regardless of where they are. It's just like the headsets. We can send those to the students. That's different. And then they do whatever it is that they need to as far as data acquisition and analysis is concerned in their own homes. I don't think that is going to just end abruptly. I think that these new techniques, the virtual reality, Labster, Blackboard, all of these are going to be a part of education from now on. And I am grateful that I found out about virtual reality and the program that VictoryXR use. And I'm absolutely delighted that it is based on next generation standards, so that regardless of where the students are in the United States of America, they are being exposed to the same expectations. It's just that the methodology that is used for getting this information over to the students now are on a different level. That information is on a different level. So we're using technology like never before, and I see a bright future for using that technology.
Sallie, you are such a techie. I love that. So let me just wrap it up by saying, one of the things that I've been very fortunate to travel a fair amount. I've traveled around the world, to China, to Europe, to so many places. And I have gotten to know and love the Chinese people. So no matter what I read in the newspaper, there is no animosity on my part with the Chinese people, because I've traveled there. And once you travel and meet people, it's very difficult to hate people. And so our hope is that with these virtual field trips that children learn that there's a great big world out there and there's so much to learn and to love. And so for Morehouse College and for the Upward Bound and TRiO program. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your summer, and congratulations on really, instead of giving up and rolling over when this pandemic hit, you pivoted and were very entrepreneurial, and that's a lot of people didn't take that path. So thank you and congratulations on behalf of VictoryXR. For all our listeners and viewers, thank you again for joining us, and keep an eye on this channel. We'll have another very interesting episode next week with a special guest from HP. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.